I would very much like to welcome everybody tonight. I'm Claudia Reisner. I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a chair of the Veterans and Military Families Caucus of the Democratic Party of New Mexico. And we are so excited to learn more about money. Show us the money. How do we get more? How do we hang on to it? How do we keep it in our communities? How do we get the interest to build here so we can do more with it? But before we start with our subject matter experts, I first want to go through some rules of the Zoom, and then we're going to start out with our Meet the Candidates portion. So the rules of the Zoom, we're going to ask everybody to please mute themselves. So when my dog or some other dog starts barking madly, it won't be shared with everybody. And if you've got questions, please put them in the chat. Just type them up. We may have time that you can ask those questions, but if not, if they're typed up, then Sandy can ask them on your behalf. And each candidate is going to have 5 minutes to speak, and then we're happy to have anybody ask questions. Really encourage our two wonderful candidates to put their contact information and their Act Blue link in that chat, because both of these candidates, they are running for a local office in Rio Rancho, and the election is 1 March. So they are down to the last 2 weeks sprint. And sometimes you run a little short on bucks, and a few dollars can really help you get over the line. So in respect to everybody's time, please stick to the 5 minutes for the candidates, 10 minutes for each of our subject matter experts. And if we have more time, we'll just take questions and have conversation. That sound good? Okay, perfect. So Barbara, top of the hour, Miss Barbara Jordan, please introduce yourself and tell me why I need to relocate to Rio Rancho.
Yes, thank you so much, Claudia, for having me. Thank you, panel, and everyone for being here. I appreciate you. I'm Barbara Jordan. I'm running for mayor of Rio Rancho. I'm a 20-year Air Force combat veteran. I retired out of here. I retired out of Kirtland Air Force Base. I arrived in New Mexico in 2015 and retired in 2018. I have big plans for Rio Rancho. I want to elevate us to the city that we need to be, and that is by doing a water study for Rio Rancho. We have not had a water study done here in over 20 years. So we really need to get down some secure water conservation tips and know what's going on with our water issues. We need to finally fix the roads here in Rio Rancho. And we have that new bipartisan infrastructure bill where we need to ensure that we get the money that Rio Rancho needs so that we can fix our roads once and for all. We have old piping here in Rio Rancho that's been out of date since the 80s, and we need to look at that as well. And also we need to look at diversity and inclusion for the citizens and community of Rio Rancho, which includes our disabled veterans and our disabled citizens here. We need public transportation here so that our members can step outside and know how they're going to get to appointments instead of wonder who they can get a ride from or trying to make it that little way so they can get on the Albuquerque bus system. We also need to take care of the mental health of our children, and that is by renewing that partnership with our public school district. I have low cost, no cost ideas to ensure that our children's mental health is paramount. And along with that, our children is enticing and encouraging our youth to live and thrive in the city that they grow up in. And that is by making pathways for them, making sure that they feel welcome here in Rio Rancho, and bringing in small businesses that will cater to our youth. These are the things that we need in Rio Rancho. This is what I'm fighting for our citizens. I'm fighting to put the unity back in community. I need you to join me as we run to the finish line of this race. We have 12 days. I need everyone to get out there and vote. Please go on my website, jordanforriorancho.com, to learn more about me. I also put my phone number in there, so please feel free to call me. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for taking the time to listen to a little bit of my platform, and I appreciate you all. Barbara Jordan, Mayor for Rio Rancho.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Barbara, I'm going to ask you though, please give us 2 minutes of your background.
Thank you.
You are a leader. You've got wonderful ideas. Where does this come from? Why do you want to keep serving? You already served the nation.
Thank you, Claudia, so much. So being a veteran, service is just ingrained in us, right? So we want to continue to serve our community in any capacity that we can. I survived multiple bouts of trauma. I survived food insecurity. I survived physical abuse from my mother. And when I left to join the United States Air Force, I left literally with only the clothes that I had on, guys. So service is in me. I started a nonprofit here in New Mexico called Press New Mexico, where we literally go out and hit the streets and feed our homeless members and make sure they have the toiletry items that they need. So yes, I'm going to continue to serve in any capacity that I can.
It makes sense. You've just developed a habit of service and cannot stop.
Right on, Claudia. And I appreciate the work that you do with the Veterans Caucus. I mean, you catapulted this caucus from a small group from a mega organization where we're actually fighting for change. And I appreciate all the work that you do for us. And I'm proud to be a part of it.
And we're so proud to have you, Barbara. Now, is your ActBlue link in the chat yet, Barbara?
Yes, so I put my website. If you go to my website, then you can hit that donate button. It'll take you straight to my ActBlue link. So I appreciate anyone who would consider $5, $10. I'm telling you, every amount that you donate, it helps. Like I calculate 6 cents text messages, like it helps, and we need it. And we have 12 days, so let's do this, guys.
I'm going to ask you to please just put I've got your Facebook,
yes,
but your website isn't live. Could you post it and put it in there live?
Yes, I sure will.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
And hang around for a few minutes if you can.
Of course I will.
Yeah, okay, great. So let's shift over to Josh Jones, another wonderful veteran running for office up in Rio Rancho.
And thank you so much, Claudia, for the kind words and the introduction. And just real quick, just to talk about some of the stuff that Barbara hit on with infrastructure and water conservation and drinkable water. Right now there's a 465-page document with federal grants with billions of dollars that Rio Rancho could take advantage of. I know that Los Lunas, Albuquerque, and surrounding neighboring cities are taking advantage of these funds, and Rio Rancho needs to do the same thing. And I know with leadership like Barbara and myself, we'll be able to do that and do it very, very effectively and very quickly. So again, thank you so much, Claudia, for that beautiful introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to everyone who is joining and tuning in. I know it's 5 p.m. You guys could be doing anything else right now, like eating dinner or spending time with your families, but you took the time to be with us right here tonight. And I believe that each of you understands how important this current race is right now. I want to give a special thanks to the Veterans Military Caucus and its leadership for facilitating this event. The caucus has been a tremendous help to myself in running this race. I have members from this very caucus who have canvassed, who have made calls, and who have donated to my campaign. And I appreciate the hard work and the long hours that you guys have poured into me. And I humbly say thank you. Again, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Barbara Jordan for having the intestinal fortitude to run for mayor of Rio Rancho. This is hard work. And I also want to take a moment to recognize that we have 2 more than qualified veterans running for public office. And I believe that it is extremely important to have representation at all levels of government, because that is how we truly ensure that our voices are being heard and that we're being taken seriously with our concerns. I want to briefly tell you a little bit about myself, my priorities, and how you can help us sprint to the finish line and sprint and finish this race off strong. For those of you joining who do not know who I am and wonder why you should support me, and like Claudia said, why you should move to Rio Rancho in District 3, I'll give you a quick peek into my background. I had the opportunity to work for Madam Secretary Deb Haaland, and I am an Air Force veteran as well, and I served in the world's greatest military 11 and a half years. I'm imbued with the military core values: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all that I do. And I think it's quite clear that I'm devoted to maintaining a strong presence within the community and government relations. During my time in the military, I was often seen as the airman and the NCO to call on in time-sensitive, mission-critical, we need it done yesterday type of situations. And I look to do that and be that same person for the city of Rio Rancho and New Mexico as a whole. I had the absolute pleasure of working with Sue, Claudia, Greg, and other members of the leadership team here with the caucus. I've helped Ivan build and design the website for the caucus. I was an outreach officer for a short period of time, and I did whatever was needed to ensure that the caucus maintained a strong presence in the community. And I just want to let you know that Claudia and whoever the chair is going to be in the future will have a direct connection to me. And I'll continue to be an advocate for the caucus and continue to work with its leadership and to look out for the interests of our veterans. I've also worked with other organizations within the community. I was a work study for the Veteran Resource Center over at CNM. I have worked closely with nonprofits like the VIC and Paws and Stripes, the Veteran Collaborative in Los Lunas. I'm currently working with Mayor Tim Keller's Veterans Mental Health Subcommittee. So I think without question, I'm dedicated to our veterans, and I will continue to answer our nation's call. As far as priorities go for Rio Rancho, Rio Rancho was once known as a business-friendly community, and currently I don't think that's the case. And I plan to incentivize small businesses to build, grow, and scale right here in Rio Rancho. And I'll fight to build our economy post-COVID by using funds from the American Rescue Plan and other funding sources. In the city of Rio Rancho, I think we also understand the importance of proper infrastructure, what, Barbara alluded to and what I kind of touched on. And I plan to invest in our roads and support workers by filling the worker gap within construction and other trades over the next 4 years. I also believe that education is vital and remains the foundation for our nation's future. And I'm going to work and collaborate with the school board and educators to invest in after-school programs to ensure that we make sure that our kids stay safe, active, and healthy. And as you're sitting there, I know you guys have this burning question. Josh, this all sounds good, but how do we help? And I'm glad you asked. There are a few ways to contribute. Right now, we're trying to round out our budget for the race. So if we can get 40 people that are present in this meeting and or watching live to donate $100, we will reach our financial goal. And like Barbara said, $5, $10, $25, anything will help. And it's going to help pay for our mailers and potential runoff. I want to make sure that the information is in the chat. It should be there, and any support that you can provide is greatly appreciated. We also need people to do phone banking and canvassing. We want to have a very aggressive push to reach voters before Election Day. And if we can commit to volunteering for at least an hour on one of these activities, I know that we'll be able to reach all of the voters that voted in District 3. Again, my name is Joshua Jones. I'm running for Rio Rancho City Council in District 3. I want to say thank you so much for your time, and let's move Rio Rancho forward. With that, I give it back to you, Madam Chair.
Josh, that is awesome. And you know what? I just tried out your link and Barbara's link, and they both work, folks. So go ahead, plug away. It's a good time to raise a few bucks to run this out. So does anyone have any questions for our two wonderful candidates? And if not, I just want to reiterate, I think you can see by listening to both Barbara and Josh tonight, this is why we seek veterans who are willing to run for office. They're hard workers. They've got a great work ethic. They're goal-oriented. They know what their mission is. They've got integrity. They've got character, and they know how to work as a team. And if you build a team, then you can lead a team, because people will follow a leader who really works as hard as anyone else on that team. And I know that the two of you are working really, really hard to win. So I think it's fantastic. Barbara, you got your hand up, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I am so proud to be on this ballot with Josh Jones. I support him tremendously. And Josh, I'm on your website right now so I can donate. And we are a powerhouse. I thank you for trusting us. And yes, veterans lead the way. And this is how we're leading the way. This is change. I listen to Josh and I listen to my own goals and platform for Rio Rancho working together. I know we're going to be a powerhouse. So I'm just so excited that he's running for District 3. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
And if I could quickly add, if there's anybody on here that is in District 3, or you know somebody in Rio Rancho, period, tell them to go out, tell them to vote for Barbara, tell them to vote for myself. And, if there's any other candidates in the future that are looking to run, please reach out and let me know, because I'd be so excited to support them.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate it. Very generous. And I think Rick and I can help you out with some phone calls. Turns out I'm going to have a little more time on my hands starting at noon tomorrow. So if we can help out with phone calls for either of you, please send all the lists to Rick. Diane, you've got your hand up, ma'am.
Yes, in Ward 18D, we just finished all of our stuff. So I know the last 2 weeks, we can at least get 5 people and do phone banking.
Awesome. Good. Sounds good. All right. Well, I'm going to take that wonderful tee up, all that talk about infrastructure. It's not just needed in Rio Rancho, it turns out. Apparently, we need it throughout the whole country as bridges are falling down and roads are a mess. And we haven't had a great highway system since probably Eisenhower. So it's a good way to lead into some wonderful subject matter experts that we have this evening. I'd like to start out and offer Sarah Manning an opportunity to kind of tee this up for us. And I've known Sarah for a few years now. I really liked learning about a public bank in New Mexico when I was running for office, and we just became good friends. So Sarah Manning is the outreach coordinator for the Alliance for Local Economic Prosperity. And I will turn it over to you, ma'am.
Well, thank you. This has been great. I don't live in Rio Rancho, but I may move. Anyway, we're going to be talking about public banks. And public banks are really not well known in the U.S. They're quite well known across the world, but not necessarily here. And that's one of the reasons why you're going to hear both about the National Infrastructure Bank and the Public Bank for New Mexico. So what is a public bank? Well, a public bank is a bank that is owned by the public, not by investors, not by big corporations. They are owned by the public under authority given to form the bank by the appropriate entity. In one case, it would be the federal government, and the other case, it would be the state of New Mexico. So a public bank also is operated in the public interest. All profits from the public bank, and even though both of these institutions would be nonprofits, that just means they're not taxable, they are profitable. And the profits go back to the people. There are different kinds of public banks, and you're going to hear about 2 very different ones. But the other thing that you need to know about public banks that we're talking about is that public banks don't actually lend directly to people. They lend to institutions who then lend to people. And so you're going to hear first about the National Infrastructure Bank, and then I'll come back and tell you what we're doing in New Mexico to get more funding for small businesses, business development, and also infrastructure and community development.
Perfect. Great tee up. Okay. Thank you. So I'm not sure who wants to speak first, if it's going to be Felix or Alfeca.
Is Felix on board?
Sorry?
Is Felix here? Did he manage to get in?
Rebecca, go ahead. You're first.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Alfeca Mutardi, and I am a macroeconomist. I worked for 25 years at the International Monetary Fund, and now I'm the lead economist on this National Infrastructure Bank proposal, and I'm also on the NIB Coalition Board. So I'm going to give you a run through of how this bank works, what it covers, what it'll do for veterans, what it'll do for New Mexico. And then Felix is going to fill in with a lot more information from the veterans' perspective and also from the perspective of being a state and city legislator that needs to get in infrastructure projects. So the bill that we're here to talk to you today about is a bill in Congress. It's got the number on the bill is HR 3339. It's a bill in the House of Representatives. And what this bill would do would be to create a $5 trillion public bank to lend for infrastructure projects all across the country. And the reason we need a public bank like this is we simply are not able to finance infrastructure either through the federal budget, as I'll tell you about in just a minute, or through state and local budgets. And the proof of the pudding is that our investments have fallen way off from 4% of GDP in the 1960s down to about 2.4% today. And even though we've had an infrastructure bill just passed in Congress, it's not going to be big enough to do the whole job for the whole country, nor for New Mexico either. So this particular bill was introduced into the legislature by Rep. Danny Davis from Illinois. It has two congressional co-sponsors also from Illinois and two from New York so far. We're all so far Democrats, but we're really looking for both Republican and Democratic members of both the House and the Senate to sponsor this bill and get it pushed forward because we think it's a really good fit for the country and we really, really need it. So this is the way the bank works. It's actually not a new idea. Most people don't know about it because it's a long ways back in history, but we've had 4 banks in our nation's past that have built most of our country's infrastructure, including in New Mexico. The first Bank of the United States was enacted by Alexander Hamilton and George Washington after the American Revolutionary War. We had a second bank around the time of the War of 1812 under Madison, and John Quincy Adams built things like railroads and canal systems before we had a road system. A third set of banks under Lincoln built things like the Transcontinental Railroad. And then a fourth really large institution. Everybody knows about the New Deal, but they don't know the critical role that this Reconstruction Finance Corporation played in getting us out of it financed everything to get us out of the Great Depression and win World War II. So this 5th proposal for a bank is actually modeled on the earlier 4. Instead of going to the federal budget and asking for money to get this bank started, instead we go to the private sector who are holding treasuries for savings or investment purposes, ask them would they like to sell in about $500 billion worth over time in exchange for an equivalent of preferred stock in the NIB that would pay these investors a little bit extra, an extra 2% above what they're earning now. That's the enticement for them to sell in. And that 2% interest stream would come out of the earnings from the NIB's loans, with plenty of money left over to meet its other operational needs. So in this sense, it fully capitalizes the NIB. That's the first step of what you need to do to open a public bank like this, or any bank as a matter of fact. Then the second step is to actually give out a loan. And the secret sauce here is that this bank operates just like a commercial bank. It's a public bank, but it operates like a commercial bank when it gives out a loan. It actually creates money on the spot. All commercial banks operate that way, and that's where the money comes from that's lent out. Then it uses cash to move its money around through the banking system. This bank will lend primarily, as Sarah mentioned, it'll lend primarily to official entities like state and local governments. It could be a transportation authority or a housing authority, something that owns public infrastructure, because 90% of our country's public infrastructure is owned by state and local governments. And the loan terms, because it's a public bank, we want to keep down as low as possible the financing costs. So around the Treasury bond rate for the interest that's charged, and also flexible repayment terms. And then, as Sarah mentioned, any money that's left over after all the operational needs of this bank are met will go into actually a trust fund. Any profits that are left over will go into a trust fund, and then we can give out grants to very low income areas and place of loans if they can't afford them. So this is what the National Infrastructure Bank will cover, around $5 trillion in projects, as I mentioned. where did that big, huge amount of estimation of need come from? It's a whopping big number, $5 trillion. Well, half of it came from the American Society of Civil Engineers, who in their latest report card say, actually, that's how much we now need to fix all of, and new money to fix all of our transportation systems, our water systems, drinking water, sewers, stormwater, that kind of thing, upgrade our electric power grid. We added some categories of our own we think are really critical. We factored in a complete high-speed rail network all across the country. That will include a network that goes right through Albuquerque, link the state east and west and north and south to other neighboring states. We put in a complete broadband, of course, everywhere. We'll roll that out. It's complementing what's in the bill that's passed, but we'll make it even larger if need be, whatever we need to do to get that broadband into every single area. We factored in 7 million affordable housing units because we have a huge housing shortage in the United States right now. The lower half of our income earners are really housing insecure and stressed on the high cost of everything. Inflation and housing is going up. And then large-scale water projects to address drought in your area, which I'll talk more about in just a second. So here's the $5 trillion. Expressed in billions of dollars, so we can compare it to this bill that just passed that your candidate Josh Jones was talking about, who wants to get money into New Mexico from this bill. Well, this is going to provide only $550 billion for the whole country in new money. So you can see, compared to our need, it's only 1/10 large enough to do the whole job. And what it means is that states like New Mexico, it's true for every single state in the United States, will not be able to get everything that they need for roads and bridges. It's way short on mass transit, falls way, way, way short on water infrastructure. There's nothing in this bill at all for affordable housing or high-speed rail. We're very glad the administration passed this bill. We always want state and local governments to get grant money first, but there's not enough to go around. What it means is that when it's dispersed out, it'll likely go to state offices, and then it won't reach out into outer areas like Rio Rancho. Those outer areas just simply won't be able to get it. So if we're serious about fixing our infrastructure, we need to have a way to pay for the other 90% that's not covered, and this National Infrastructure Bank will cover all of that. I'm going to send to you a set of these slides if you like, and then you won't have to take some copious notes or anything, but I'll send them to Claudia, and then she can pass them on to you. What's going to be the effect of this, the operations of this bank on the American economy? I'm a macroeconomist, so I always look at these kinds of things, okay? It's very important to me, but the very first thing is, $5 trillion is a lot of money to spend, and we're going to need a lot of workers to do all of this work. It's going to create up to 25 million new great-paying jobs. The legislation requires that workers doing this construction must be paid Davis-Bacon wages, no more even minimum wage or below minimum wage, but we'll have full Davis-Bacon wages, and of course they'll get full benefits too, like healthcare benefits. It requires that the construction inputs must be made in America. That will promote American manufacturing and create even more jobs. So this is going to raise GDP growth to around 5% per year. That's what happened the last time we had a bank like this, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. We have economic models to show we can do the same thing. So now, guess what? We're able to finance everything that we need for infrastructure without making any call on the federal budget. No new federal spending, no new taxes, no new deficit spending. That should appeal to every single Republican, Democrat, even Joe Manchin should like this idea. So it's the way to go. Plus, no new inflation either. Why? Because now we're making we're spending our dollar on the very best kind of investment that increases the productivity of the economy, gets trucks moving faster, that kind of thing, and will really spur economic growth. So there are several areas of emphasis of this bank. I'm going to go through just a few of them that really pertain to you. But first and foremost is to solve this problem of drought in the Southwest. There is nothing really in the bipartisan bill on to solve the drought problem. They had originally $8 billion in there, and then that went away. Now it's going to be used to do pollution runoff in the Great Lakes area. It's gone from the bill. There's nothing in that bill at all. There's a little bit for water infrastructure, but as I pointed out, what's in here for water infrastructure is only $55 billion. So in your plans to get money to Rio Rancho and to all the rest of New Mexico, you have to fight with all the rest of America over this $55 billion. It's not going to bring in new water supplies, and you'll be really challenged to get new water supplies in. Meanwhile, our bill has $400 billion in it for just water projects to bring in new water. However we do it, it's conservation, desalination, piping it in from the Missouri River, from the Mississippi River, however we do it. And I wanted to inform you about some ideas that I had for getting this water out by doing something called deep drilling for primary water. There won't be enough in the bill.
You know that there's not that much time.
Right. There won't be enough in the bill for that, but we're working on doing that in New Mexico for tribal areas. But I wanted to let you know about that. Another emphasis of this bill is to solve poverty in rural America. All of these areas that are shown in white, and you can see that New Mexico has a lot of white areas. We want to make sure that our bank gets out projects to every single rural area. All of the roads that are needed, all of the bridges that are needed, broadband everywhere, new schools, hospitals, everything that needs to make an economy vibrant. And then we want to train workers. We have a real mismatch right now on our workforce. People are still coming back out of COVID into low-paying jobs. We want to get the jobs there and then train these workers for 21st century great-paying jobs. And this is where we'll do things like helmets to hard hat programs for veterans, earn while they learn, do this training while they're working on the job under these new jobs that are created by the National Infrastructure Bank, and get them certified in great paying jobs for the 21st century. So what's in it for New Mexico, for example? Out of the $5 trillion, we think that the state could qualify for up to $33 billion over 10 years. That will solve all of your backlog of projects. It'll create 160,000 new great paying jobs in the state. Compare that to what's going to be arriving from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, only $3.7 billion. So you can see that's 1/10, too small to solve all of your infrastructure problems in the state. We'll be building schools, local roads, bridges, affordable broadband, affordable housing, and complete drinking water systems and provision of new water and training workers. So that's it real quick in a nutshell of what the National Infrastructure Bank can do for New Mexico and veterans.
That is fantastic. Holy Toledo. You know, I've had to take macroeconomics, and it was never that interesting. So really a great job.
Thank you.
Is Felix here?
Yeah, he's there. Yes.
Okay. Why don't we jump right in? And this is Mr. Felix Ortiz, former Assistant Speaker of the New York State Assembly and a veteran. And I don't know what branch, so let's find out, Felix.
One of the best branches that you can ever serve, which is the Army, U.S. Army. Let's go.
We can have that discussion another day.
we
welcome.
We have, the great thing is we have in my family, we have one from every branch, and we make it happen that way. That way we cannot fight. We can build consensus among ourselves. Well, let me just say thank you very much for helping us to come together and to talk a little bit about this national infrastructure banking. I was approached by Stuart back 5 years ago, before I retired, to introduce the first resolution in the country, calling in Congress to support the national infrastructure banking. One of the key elements of this national infrastructure banking, despite the fact of everything else that Rebecca spoke about it, is one quick indicator, and that is this infrastructure will not raise taxes. And that is something that we have to concentrate. Everything else critical is important. But if for those folks running for office, God bless them, and good luck to you. One of the biggest challenges that everybody faces is taxes. Why might taxes go up? What are you going to do about my taxes? Property taxes, real estate taxes, whatever taxes might be, sewer taxes, and blah, blah, blah. So that's very important and very critical to think through it. Why? Because when we run for office, we can promise the moon. And then when we go into the institution, we're realizing that the moon was gone. Now we have a very big heat up conversations going on because nobody have a clear idea where to go regarding some of the needs that need to be addressed in every local community. And just remember, Tip O'Neill was very bright. All politics are local. And I just quote, that's exactly what he said. All politics are local. Doesn't matter what Congress people can go to Congress. A state legislator can go to their capital. But at the end of the day, they have to come back home and explain to their constituents. The National Infrastructure Banking will help and will enhance and empower as well our veterans. As a veterans, I'm very proud and a former legislator, very proud to support this national infrastructure because it's a speak to myself. I speak to people like myself, veterans, who specifically for those who really need a job and need to be retrained. And in today's era, we need to talk about how can we retrain those people who have been dislocated, those people who are not keeping up with traditional jobs. So we have to move from a traditional to non-traditional environment. And the national infrastructure it's addressing that and will bring that to light. Finally, I would like to say that, for those of you running for office, one thing is about running for office, and I hope you can keep the enthusiasm, the energy, that synergy that you have to bring into those institutions. But once you get there, now it's come the part of governance. And the part of governance is very critical because what you're getting from this national infrastructure banking, I hope you get elected because you'll be able to help us to push it above and beyond the call of duty. Because one of the major goals for us as a state local government is to push our congressional delegations to support via what we call resolution, introducing resolution in the city council, majors association throughout the country or throughout the state, if they have one. The state legislator introducing the resolution. Some houses, state legislators may allow you to move that resolution into committees. Other, like New York, they never allow you to do that, but the statement is made. You have to make that statement. It's critical, very important in the United Front to make sure that our congressional delegation and our Congress people are listening. And I give you this one to close. We've been working on this for a while now, and one of the strategies that we began to use in New York, because too many people love me so much, we decided to really use my name in New York more often, more loud, be more loud. Felix is behind it. Felix is helping. Felix is pushing this. Felix is with us. Felix has been doing that. And the legislator has been come back and said, well, we know Felix very well. He's a real force. He knows people around the country. So not only they say that, but in reality, you're beginning to see more congressional people now being part of our conversation. Why? Very simple. It's re-election day a year. When you have re-election year,
oh, we lost you. He lost his connection.
Uh-oh.
Oh, he'll get back on. But he lost, I think the connection went out. I tell you, welcome to
better infrastructure.
Yes, welcome to broadband in New York.
Come on, let's get on this. Let's take this short break and.
Oh, I think he's
coming back.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah, there he is. Okay,
great.
Sorry, I apologize. When you are in relation in a relation mood, so this is the time to take advantage and question our congressional people Albeca has been very nice and very kind to say, at least we have a bill. For me, I say we have a disaster. And I have telling the Congress people, I have the people that have come to meet with us. I said, listen, I cannot thank you for it because I was a legislator for 26 years and I was in leadership position. And I know what cannot be done. And I know how far we can go, but, it's been this culture in every state legislator, in Congress and the local governments where, well, you know what, at least we did something, just keep it up. We just did something. Next year we do more. Well, what happened? Look at my father. My father said to me, next year we're going to go to Greece. So he died 2 days ago. So, but now we had to go to Greece. I had to go to Greece by myself. But then, you know what happened? Those are the things that really take place in real life. We want to leave things for tomorrow when we can take things now. And then the infrastructure continue to get old. And I hope that for the folks running for office, I hope you take it very seriously. Because it's a big, let me tell you, it's a big honor to be elected. It's a big honor. It's a great job, but it's only a great job. Like my father used to say, if it's only a great job when you go home and you go to sleep and you put your head on your pillow and you can figure out what was one thing that you did to make a difference today. And that is how you feel. You should feel very proud about yourself for what you did that day. Thank you very much. And I wish you good luck, bless, and I looking forward to working with all of you. And I'm not running for anything, so.
You're running to fix this disaster. That's what you're running for, Felix. Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And, you're a veteran and, so you're not Navy. Nobody's perfect. It's okay. But you are a veteran and you know how to work hard. So your attitude, the skill set you bring, and your enthusiasm, that's exactly what we want running for office and governing. Your point is so well made. It's great to be
Let me rethink that then.
Sorry?
I said, let me rethink. Go back.
Okay.
It's a couple of congressional sit-ups in New York right now, so I might even do it.
So we've got a couple of questions. Sandy, would you like to ask them to our speakers, please?
I've got a question here for Alfeca. What are the objections at a congressional level to the creation of this bank if there are no new taxes, debt, or additional inflation?
That's a great question. You would think it's a no-brainer, right? Everybody should be jumping on it, but they're not. One problem is we have a Congress that is just set in their ways. First of all the oxygen got sucked out of the air over the last year trying to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The problem was the price tag was big to fix all the infrastructure, and everybody kept saying, oh, no, we can't pay for it. That's just too big. So it got smaller and smaller and smaller. Finally, what they've come up with is $550 billion of new money. Okay, that's fine. We're glad that they did it. But the other problem is they're still fixated on this idea that they have to finance infrastructure through the budget. And we're trying to tell them that it's just not possible. Otherwise, why would you have built up this huge backlog of projects that haven't gotten financed over the last 60 years? It doesn't fit through the budget. Let's do it the way we've done it in the past, in the American past, by having an infrastructure bank. And by the way, they've all been successful. They built most of our nation's infrastructure. It's a way, they have to come up with a new way of thinking and sort of relinquishing their old ways of this idea of you have to finance it through the budget. That's mostly the main reason. And also they look around and say, well, who's on? Did somebody else, support it? And they're waiting for the other person to support it. Really, this is going to be a grassroots effort. Boy, if you want to talk about we need the military and we need everybody all hands on deck to push from the bottom up, otherwise this is not going to happen. Everybody needs to get on the phone, call up their member of Congress and say, you must pass this right away because things are falling apart. Bridges are collapsing. It's going to be a catastrophe before very long, and now's really the time to do it. So that's probably the biggest push. We need to push ourselves.
It's called leadership and having stomach to do the right thing on behalf of their people of this country. That's all.
Okay, Sandy, you got your hand up, ma'am.
I do have my hand up. So let me start by saying I am not an economist. And what I'm trying to understand is, like, you say this is a no-brainer, and it seems like it is. And I'm wondering where the pushback would come from. Would the banks not want this because maybe they're not going to make as big a fee, but this is big money, so it seems like there's a lot of money to be had by the banks, the institutions. So I'm not seeing really what the downside is to this.
We think that there'll be a lot of synergy for commercial banks. If commercial banks were capable of financing infrastructure, for example, public-private partnerships and toll roads and things like that, they would have done it already. Over the last 60 years, they had plenty of opportunity to do it, but they don't want to lend to those kind of projects unless they can make a really big, fat rate of return. And oftentimes the projects don't go very well either. But there's large capacity. If the infrastructure bank can take the lead on a project, then other banks can come in and also support secondary business, support things like a partnership to build high-speed rail, where the bank would take the most senior debt and they would take the junior debt. Those kind of things, where the government guarantee would kick in and ensure that they get a good rate of return. There's plenty of room for synergy and plenty of room for growth in the economy that'll come out of this. That'll be really great for big businesses and small businesses alike. So the idea is that it should be welcome to them, and it will make money for them in the end.
That's really the perfect question to ask, though, Sandy. You always want to know who are the stakeholders that are against this, and what is their perception that they're going to lose, and then the heck with them. And like you said, all hands on deck. Just get out there and scream for it. All right. Taurus, you've got your hand up, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this can be for, of course, Ms. Alfecca, or for any of our distinguished speakers. But I had a question regarding, it's more of a political question than actually a banking question, and it may actually help to speak to the wider problem of why people might be averse to the banks, and maybe we can see it through a different lens. Ms. Alfecca, based on just the background that you gave, I'm sure you're familiar with the creation of the second central bank back in the 18 teens. And of course, hopefully I'm hoping to draw sort of a consensus to the time then and the time now. So especially during the time of the Jackson administration and the fight that President Jackson and the bank had with its charter in 1832 and the battle over that and what it led to for America. Back then, as now, we have a highly nationalist political wing. We have individuals who, regardless of everything we've talked about tonight, still believe that a central bank or a national bank is bad for states' rights and for the little investor. As some people have said here, people want to know who the stockholders are. Is this simply a trust fund for the wealthy, for the 1%? And so it draws parallels in between that time and this. And I was wondering, to the political, we're going to have people who, for all good intentions, are still going to be against any sort of a centralized institution that will invest in America, simply because when they hear infrastructure, and of course we'll hear this from our colleagues on the other side, when you talk about infrastructure, you're talking about states' rights. States should have more control over its own infrastructure future. Can any of you enlighten or elucidate on how we can, through here in a political year, not unlike what we had during the time of Jackson, work to emphasize how the bank, the Central Infrastructure Bank, can help nationally rise all boats and bring these investments so that every state in the union, and it's true, every state in the union can actually benefit from this National Infrastructure Bank, its concepts, and its practical applications through the states. And I'll yield back.
Well, that's an easy one. Whoever wants it.
I'm going to let Stu take a crack at this. He's our resident historian.
I don't know about that. All right, Stuart Rosenblatt. I work with Alfecca and Assemblyman Ortiz. I hang around and let them do all the heavy lifting. Well, I don't know. On the first of all, there are a lot of misconceptions about Jackson. I mean, let's be brutally honest. Andrew Jackson's picture should never have been on the $20 bill. He was a bad guy, just from the beginning. He was a bad guy in the War of 1812, and his relationship to Indians and African Americans was despicable. He was a wholly owned subsidiary of Wall Street, hilariously, and was used to stop the second bank in the United States, which did build a heck of a lot of the infrastructure in the early middle part of the 19th century, the railroads, canals, all the different bridge and other projects. But the big issue, the hilarious issue, is that the reason why the second bank of the United States, it actually passed the Congress and was going to be rechartered, and Jackson simply vetoed the rechartering. And within 5 years of Jackson vetoing it, we had the first banking crash in the history of the country in 1837. Why? Because Jackson deregulated banking, just like what's been going on in this country for, the last 20 plus years since the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act. And what happened after Glass-Steagall was repealed, which prevented, the securities issuing institutions from merging with commercial banks. We had a gigantic banking collapse in 2008, exactly like what happened in 1837. So what Jackson did is he deregulated the banking system, and we had the biggest financial bubble up to that point in history, and it blew out. Okay, so the issue is really it's a false argument. In fact, the best example to use for people in New Mexico and people around the country is a guy named Franklin Roosevelt. I mean, Franklin Roosevelt, who was Franklin Roosevelt's great-great-great-grandfather? Well, he was Alexander Hamilton's partner in the Bank of New York and helped bring in the first bank of the United States. But FDR used the Reconstruction Finance Corporation as a national bank and a national infrastructure bank, and actually built a large chunk of the infrastructure that we have today, and built many projects in New Mexico. So FDR is the best example, and it is always the case that if you pull back the curtain of the people who oppose this policy, whether it be when it was done by John Quincy Adams or Abraham Lincoln, who, by the way, was a Republican, which is, we're having fun explaining the history of the Republican Party to Republicans. They're shocked, anyhow. Or FDR, they always get attacked, and the guise is always populism, that the big, bad central bank is coming in to tell us what to do. That's the cover story. It's like the Wizard of Oz. If you pull back the curtain, you find Jamie Dimon, you find the big Wall Street banks. They're always, a big problem in this. Hilariously, though, with our bank, just like Hamilton's bank, it's going to be the biggest bank in the country. We're going to be bigger than JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America. But if we break them up the way it was done under FDR, FDR and Glass-Steagall, then the whole commercial banking section of all these banks will join with the infrastructure bank and build the country. So the only people who are going to be left out to dry are the people who love gambling, the derivatives dealers. So we're not concerned about it, believe it or not. We'll negate them. We'll have fun. We'll crack jokes at them, and we'll move forward because the times are too serious right now. We can't allow the nonsense to go on. I know that's a long answer, but.
It was a tough question, and you really addressed it thoroughly. I appreciate that. We got to get him off the $20 bill, don't we?
For God's sakes, there's
another guest speaker.
I could think of a bunch of people who could be on the. I could think of everybody in this audience could be on the bill. Starting with your two candidates.
Yeah.
Felix Ortiz. Where's Felix Ortiz? Put Felix Ortiz on that $20. I'm serious. But
so we had one more individual. Nancy Beers was on board, and she's the treasurer for Bernalillo County. And she had a question, and I don't know if her internet's failed or what happened, Sandy. Is she gone?
I don't. I see her still on.
I do too.
I see her name.
She's muted.
Nancy, if you're there. There you are, ma'am. Please.
No, I'm still here, but I'm going to wait till the public bank and Sarah's presentation.
Okay, very good. Then let's tee up.
Claudia, right. could I make one quick request and then I'll get off?
You can stay, Stu.
I mean, we're going to stay to listen, but I don't want to talk. Very simple. I do want to let you know that we've had all sorts of resolutions of endorsement of this policy. And just so you know, the Virginia Democratic Party, Pennsylvania Democratic Party, Alaska Democratic Party have all endorsed the legislation, and numbers of county Democratic parties all over the country have endorsed, and there are more. So one thing just to think about, because we have had already meetings with at least most of the offices of your congressional delegation, and 2 face-to-face meetings with Ms. Leger Fernandez. So we really want co-sponsors in Congress. So one thing you may want to think about, if people are interested, would be some kind of resolution at some point for the New Mexico Democratic Party, because that would be very important. We're going after Congress, and it would have an obvious impact, except possibly on one of your congressional delegation. And we do want to thank you for inviting us. This was really nice, and appreciate the audience. Boy, smart people. I mean, we're going to transplant all of you guys to Washington, put you in Congress, and it'll be, earn as you learn, but you're going to just do it. Thank you.
We need to get you in touch with Jessica Velasquez, Stu.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. And please do stick around.
Yeah, we will.
Sarah Manning, let's turn it over to you, and let's hear all about a public bank for New Mexico.
Thank you. I love the NIB. I think it is going to be a game changer for our country. I think we should be supporting it. I think we should all get in touch with our congressional people and say, please do this. It will make a difference for New Mexico. Another thing that will make a difference for New Mexico is a different kind of public bank, which is a state public bank that we've designed basically for New Mexico needs. So what happens in New Mexico is that we are a poor state with $26 billion invested in Wall Street. And there are good reasons for why that happened and how that happened, and that's fine. And we do benefit from the proceeds, especially our schools. That's great. But we also have a banking system in this state that is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We are down to 33 community banks in New Mexico. We have a lot of branches of the mega banks in New Mexico, and they do operate as community banks, but they answer to their Wall Street bosses. And so when they are considering loans, they have to consider how to contribute to the bottom line of the parent company, which is a very expensive proposition. So what the Public Bank of New Mexico would do is use, in a creative way, just as the National Infrastructure Bank is using federal debt to capitalize the bank, we would take $50 million, and I said 50 million, not billions, not trillions, 50, only $50 billion. It's a very small amount of money to capitalize the bank. And that would come directly from our general fund. So it's not coming from any of the trust funds. They will remain as they are. Coming from our general funds. And 50 million sounds like a lot of money, but we typically have in our general fund $7 to $8 billion invested in Wall Street every single day. Because like households, money comes into a state budget and it goes out of the state budget for expenses. But you typically get more money coming in at any one given time than you need to go out. And so what the treasurer does is balance that, just the way every household checkbook has to be balanced. Which bills do you pay when? And so that you have enough cash flow. So the money you don't really need right now, that's earning interest in Wall Street. And we have no control over where that money is invested. And what that literally means is that you will find that New Mexico money is invested in New York City real estate, among other places. And that's probably good for making money. And if you are an investor, an individual investor, you may choose to do that. But this is our public money. These are our taxes. These are our fines and our fees. And we believe that if you're going to be investing money in a state, well, we have a perfectly good state right here that needs money invested in it. And so what we're proposing is to take $50 million of the state's money and use that to capitalize the bank. Now, bank capital is not spent. That is the foundation that establishes the credit that the bank has. We would also, the first year, ask for an appropriation, and that's why our bills go before appropriation committees in the House and the Senate, for that money simply to be deposited into the bank instead of deposited in Wall Street. So another 60 million gets deposited, and that's the 60 million that can be used for loans. Two additional facts. They're a little confusing. The public bank would not loan to individuals. It would loan to other banks to strengthen their ability to make local loans. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But the other thing that Alphaka actually mentioned this, banks, when they make a loan, create money. They create money that did not exist before. It's one of those amazing things of double entry bookkeeping. And it's a very old concept. It goes back to Mesopotamia. That's when they first figured out how to do this. And that's the basis of every bank going forward. And so the 60 million that would be available for lending out actually turns into anywhere between $550 and $600 million is the amount that can be loaned. And then that money gets repaid with interest. But because the public bank does not have branches, it doesn't have tellers, it doesn't have advertising, it doesn't have a huge labor force, its expenses are really pretty low considering it is a bank. And so its overhead is low and it does not need to charge a lot of interest. So that benefits us in a couple of ways. It means that the bank can lend to other banks, smaller banks, your community banks, or your credit unions, or your CDFI, your community development financial institution, at a low rate. And when money gets lent to another bank, that money gets deposited into the bank, and that bank has more money that it can lend. So this is a domino effect of increasing the money supply circulating through our state. And what that means is that we will be able to finance indirectly, yes, but the state will be able to finance things like food co-ops, like spin-off businesses from the enhanced infrastructure development that's going on. All of those workers building dams, doing solar installations on huge scales, they are all going to need some place to have lunch, and they're going to need to have tires on their car, and their kids are going to need this. And so it's what it does is it increases the cycle of money in our communities. And every time that happens, local communities get increased GRT, which benefits the local community. The state gets increased GRT, which benefits our state. So we literally are creating more money flowing through the state of New Mexico. And that really does work on a bottom-up level to float all boats, as Felix said. So we think that the New Mexico Public Bank and the National Infrastructure Bank really are going to work hand in hand. We really do need increased infrastructure on a large scale in New Mexico. And one of the things that Alphega did not mention is that no one is going to force a state or a community to improve their own infrastructure. What the NIB is doing is making money available for them should they wish to use it. Now, of course, you and I would think that they will use it for a lot of reasons. They have to get reelected is one. But it also means that with the public bank then, which can lend money to tribes, it can lend money to library districts, it could be money to hospital districts, to school districts, to a city. For example, Cuba's water supply has been for years horrendous. Their wells pull from undrinkable water, and it needs to be so. Their corrosive water has made a huge problem for them, and that money, they can't wait for a bond cycle, which happen every 2 years or so. And they have to fight to get that project into a county bond cycle. But if they wanted to, and it's only about $300,000 that they need, they would be able to borrow it from the bank without waiting when they have a crisis to fix. And so both of these banks working together would really bring our money into our local communities and give the priority for fixing things or for investing to be made at the local level, not at the state government, but at the local level. So this is a way to democratize our financial system.
Wow. Doesn't that make a lot of sense?
Well, we hope so. It's a little confusing.
Well, it takes a little bit of education, which is, I think, what we're doing a good job of here. Yeah. And I'd like to, before we take Nancy's question, I'd like to ask you to send, I know you've got some slides on this, and Sarah.
Yes.
And if we can put your slides as well as whatever we get from the National Infrastructure Bank, we're going to put them on the website because this is a lot to absorb, but people can go through it and figure it out. And we'd really like you to include your contact information so if people have questions. Okay. Miss Nancy Beers, please, it's to you, ma'am. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's great to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see all the veterans and military family folks. You know, of course, I'm from a military family myself, and brothers that attended the military academy, and I'm with Felix. I'm an Army brat, so sorry.
That's okay. I married an Army brat.
That's right. It takes all of us, right? There we go. But no, I just wanted to add some commentary and some color to this New Mexico Public Bank, because I was kind of in on the front side because this came out of my ward and was brought up through the Democratic Party platforms, and we got it added to the platform in 2014. So this is not a new idea to us Democrats. We've been seeing this go on before, and many people have studied it and have been trying to do it since 2014. But the group that Sarah and others put together as a nonprofit have really been doing great work for several years on doing some heavy lifting on getting this done. So, and of course, you know, as your Bernalillo County Treasurer, I talked about this in my campaign in 2016 and fully supported it then, and I continue to support it now as your treasurer. And I brought it to all the other county treasurers because I am chair of that treasurers organization across the state. And many of them are very excited about it as well. And through that, one of my colleagues, former Sandoval County Treasurer Laura Montoya, is also supportive of this. And she couldn't be here tonight, but she put me up to attending on her behalf because she is running as your state treasurer. And as a state treasurer candidate, she is supportive of the public bank law that we want to get passed. We tried it again, so we're going to have to try it next year in the legislature, and I think we'll get it done then. Right, Sarah?
We will. Absolutely. Third time is the trick, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Third time's a charm.
That's right. And the more you talk about it and you really work through everybody's questions, I think you really will understand it. There's some questions in the chat, so I'm going to be quiet and let's go for the discussion. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Nancy. I appreciate it. It's nice to see you, and we're going to have to talk about getting you on board with the caucus here.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any more questions?
We do. Bruce had a question. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, Bruce.
Yes, thank you. Question for Sarah. So the money of the public bank is used to loan to other local banks. How do we control how that money is used so that, say, it doesn't go to stockholder returns, which we have seen, you know, with I believe the first wave of economic relief money from the federal government, or other things that are not in the general public interest. Is it done on, are these loans done on, you know, like a block grant type basis, or are they specific projects?
They're specific projects, and that is just an amazing question. I really appreciate you answering it. The bank and the local community bank would agree through memorandums of understanding or other legal documents that the money would be going through a loan program. So you would go to your public bank and say, I'm a farmer, a small farmer, and I need to get cold storage for my produce to keep it fresh before it goes to the farmer's market. And the local bank would say, you're a small farmer and you don't need that much money, and we can't loan to you because small loans are just too expensive for us to make. And furthermore, you don't have any collateral that we would be able to securitize. So you're really risky for us, and sorry. But if there were a public bank program for farmers, for small acreage farmers, for just this kind of purpose, because we know the need for this particular thing exists everywhere, then the bank would say, yeah, I think we could probably lend you the money. And there is a program for people in your situation, and we'll get it done. So the local banks would have to use the money for very specific purposes. And you're right, PPP loans, some of that money got diverted into non-salaried issues, which was too bad. But that it does happen. The other thing to be aware of, every single bank is scrutinized by the federal government, by the appropriate agencies at the federal and state level. So we're talking the State Banking Association regulators, the FDIC scrutinizes, the Federal Reserve scrutinizes, and the Public Bank of New Mexico would need to pass all of their regulations and their accounting processes and their legal scrutiny every single year, just the way every other bank does.
Great, thank you. I'm interested in that. I was an economics major, and macroeconomics was my favorite subject in college.
Oh, good. Good.
Thank you. Good question and great answer. We've got one more question, I think, Sandy.
Yeah. Michelle, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Oh, she says she can't. Okay, so I will go ahead and I will ask it. She's asking, what kind of entity would the state bank be? A state agency, co-op, nonprofit, or what?
It would be a bank chartered by the state of New Mexico, and the state of New Mexico already has the authority to do that. And it would also be eligible to have access to what is known as the overnight window at the Federal Reserve, so that it would have access to the Federal Reserve System just as other banks do have. One of the things that people sometimes ask about is the relationship between the state bank and, for example, the New Mexico Finance Authority or the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority, or the SIC, or all of the rest of the alphabet soups of governmental agencies that we have. They would work in partnership. In other words, the Economic Development Department of the state has come out with a brand new 20-year plan for economic development programs across the state in 9 different areas. And if you haven't read it, the summary is really quite readable. The rest of it is 400 pages, but you can find that online. And the bank would be able to create loan programs on demand within those 9 areas, so that the bank's programs would support the economic development that the state and the population of New Mexico want. So that's what it would be. It would be a bank, and it would be set up permanently. Once it was capitalized, it would not need further capitalization. The money would not need to come. It doesn't need to be approved on an annual basis by the legislature. So it's again, it is money outside the state budget. So you can plan on being able to have a loan this year and next year and next year and next year without going through worrying about whether a grant would be withdrawn in a different administration, or the money dries up, or we do go through a bust financial cycle here in New Mexico. And Claudia has put the website for the Alliance for Local Economic Prosperity.org, which is our website. You can also go on YouTube and Google Public Bank New Mexico, and you will come up with a whole bunch of very short videos describing different aspects of the public bank.
And there's a lot to learn about it and to understand. And you know, you're right, we've got about a year until the next session here in New Mexico. And we need to educate people, and we need to find the people who are really against this and engage in a civilized conversation and understand their arguments and strengthen the data and the info we have, so that when we talk to others, we can respond appropriately, in my opinion. You know, I just spent a month up here, and there are a lot of people that just have no idea what a public bank or what the national infrastructure banks are. So, Nancy, is your hand up for another question, or was that residual from your first one?
I'm just answering some things in my expertise in the chat that I see coming up. If you wanna read through that, because of my experience being, you know, in public service through Albuquerque Public Schools, through the state of New Mexico as an employee, and working nonprofits, and now as an elected. You know, some of the lingo that we use, I've put in the chat room as far as the bones of a public bank, what it would kind of look like. And, you know, this isn't too different, because we have things like PARA, we have things like a MAFCA, where people are appointed to a board and serve on a board for the betterment of whatever that issue is, whether it be pensions or, and other things, flood control, soil and conservation districts.
Good.
So this just, targets financing and banking in our state and using our own money to work it ourselves. And I think there's plenty of brain power here. I'm glad to see Bruce Miller here and know that, he likes microeconomics because, we're going to tap you. We're going to tap you, Bruce. You're going to be our biggest supporter and speaker the next time.
Okay, well, thanks, Nancy. We've only got a couple minutes left. I want to respect everybody's time. We typically secure around 6:30. So let me just do a last call for any questions from our audience.
Can I make a 1 second announcement, Claudia?
Yes, sir. Go for
Real
it.
fast. Anybody would like follow-up on this? Tomorrow night, our coalition sponsoring a national Zoom event at 6 o'clock your time. Everybody's invited. You can go to our website, nibcoalition.com. It's free. And the theme is going to be President's Day, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and national banking. And one of the speakers is going to be the founder of the Public Bank Institute and chairman, Ellen Brown from California, who may talk about public banking, but she's going to talk about Abraham Lincoln. So anyhow, everybody's invited.
Why don't you put that little information about that in the chat so people could follow up?
Can you do that, Alfecca? Alfecca's better.
I'll see if I can get the email.
And Bruce, you've got your hand up, sir.
Yeah. What are some other states that have a public bank specifically, in trying to address anticipated objections from our people, from the people across the aisle? Are there any red states that have public banks?
No. There is only one state that has a public bank. It has had the public bank for 102 years, and that would be, of all places, the Bank of North Dakota.
Okay.
Guam also has now its own public bank. There are a couple of Native American tribes, I think in Oklahoma, who have at one point or another had a public bank. But the thing to remember about public banks is that they are best done when they are designed to suit the needs of the people that a public bank would serve.
Thank you.
Because North Dakota's public bank is different in many ways than what we're proposing here. And if you're really curious, the bill that we had this year was HB 75. And if you go to nmlegis.gov, you'll be able to print, you can find it under legislation, and then you can print it out. It's not that long. It's about 9 pages. It's pretty clear. And it talks about who governs and what the board is like and where the money comes from and all of that good stuff.
Who carried that bill, Sarah?
That was in the Senate, it was Jeff Steinborn, and in the House, it was Patricia Roybal Caballero. But we'll be back in the fall, so look for it. And we're going to be talking in your community. One of the things that we do right now is we hold community conversations, which is a way for us to find out what the needs are in communities. So we've done that in Oak Taos and Santa Fe and Albuquerque, of course, but also Las Cruces and TRC and Farmington, and we're about to go to Clovis and Raton, and you would just keep going.
Excellent. Good. Okay. And we have just had posted in the chat the registration link for the National Infrastructure Bank Coalition Zoom event tomorrow. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So if anybody's interested, jump on that link before we shut this down, and you can register once we wrap it up. This is really
Claudia, I wanted to thank you for putting this together. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed it immensely and learned a lot. So thank you.
I have too. I've just learned a ton about this. This is really good. And I've known more about public banking than National Infrastructure Bank, but we need both of them. Mm-hmm. We keep talking, and it's the institutions and the people with the money that want to maintain the status quo. And we need to get word out to regular citizens all over the place who, number one, want some good paying jobs. Number two, would like to have America look like the way we want America to look, not like a crumbling empire in dire need of a lot of fixing. So, and to keep the money local, all very important. Bruce, your hand's still up. Do you have another question, sir?
You're muted.
No, okay. I think that's a wrap then. I'd like to start by thanking Sarah Manning. I really appreciate you coming out tonight to the Zoom and sharing all this information. We are going to put your slides up on our website. Next, Stu, we've been talking for a few months. I thank Rudy Martinez for being connecting us and getting this going. And we would appreciate any slides from either of the speakers coming our way. So thank you for doing this. And Alfeca, this is wonderful. I'm going to go through those slides. That really looks interesting. I can't imagine how important, how important this is and how hard we need to work to make this help everybody that it's going to help once we get it here. So let's get into a partnership on this. This is going to
absolutely. We can get this done.
Yeah, we can do this.
We'd like to thank you very much, Claudia, for having us. It was really a lot of fun. You have great people. By the way, if anybody does want to do follow-up, just send your email to Claudia and we'll give you a buzz, send you further material. But thanks a lot, and thank everybody. And thanks, Sarah, the resident genius in New Mexico.
And thanks, everyone in the audience, and thanks our wonderful crew. Ivan for getting the Zoom all sorted out, Taurus and Sandy for working the chat and getting everyone in, and Diane for all the follow-up to bring people to this. So thanks, team. It's always a team effort, and we've got the best here. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.